Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming, and welcome to my first live build showcase for Season 4. It's a Necromancer using minions, crazy concept right now. However, this build is from max speed blasting. As you can see, I am flying through these dungeons at incredible speed despite being a Necromancer, and the damage is comical to the point that everything is dying per tendril, per golem slam. Woe upon anything when I use Army of the Dead and get the big damage bonus from that. It means I'm quite literally one-shotting every boss and every enemy that I deal with while speed leveling in these nightmare dungeons. Also, you'll notice that I'm using Decompose instead of Blight, which everyone and their mother is aware of right now since that increases your damage massively for this build. I'm also using a different key passive. I'm not using the Shadow Blight passive unless I'm doing single target because there's an easy swap you can make. Why am I doing this? Well, again, I'm max leveling to level 100 right now. I want to be able to do that as fast as possible, as I'm already instantly killing every enemy I'm facing, even though it's anywhere from 10 to 20 levels above me, and I'm moving so quick that I kill it all in record time. I'm blasting levels because of it. Decompose allows for a consistent movement speed boost. I'm never limited by essence, and I'm certainly not struggling on damage. The key passive swap means I have higher burst, which means I kill everything instantly, rather than having higher DPS, because I don't need higher consistent DPS. I'm not farming bosses yet. I'm trying to reach level 100, and this is just the best build for that. If you do want to stop and fight a single boss like Vashan, Grigore, or Uber Duriel, which by the way we already killed when we were like in our 60s, there's a simple swap you can make. You do slap on Blight and that buff passive. You do swap the key passive over, and then you're just ready to go for bossing. It's that easy. Normally in this type of video, I'd be showing you guys the Capstone boss for World Tier 4 as a highlight of how strong the build I'm showing is, but because that was the joke this time around, it is instead me beating a Tier 47 very early with extreme ease and pace at that, which means I can now get into the pit and get master working unlocked. Basically, I think this is the best method for speed leveling to 100 in World Tier 4. That endgame leveling bit we're all doing right now. I think the little swaps and techs make a massive difference, and you're going to do so much better right now with this than an endgame build that's designed for pit pushing. You don't need higher DPS, you need higher burst right now, you're speed leveling. So with all that said, here is the build. Let's start with the Book of the Dead. On this one, we have Skeletal Warriors with Reapers with Upgrade 2. This gives us more of a chance to form corpses, which is important because of stuff in our Paragon. Having more corpses means we can reliably corpse tendril, maintain our buffs, but you can easily do Upgrade 1 instead if you want to help reduce your cooldowns so you can slam more. For Skeletal Mages, we're going Shadow Upgrade 1. This gives you a raw % increase, which is multiplied as well, for each active Shadow Mage. All your minions are going to be alive all time, so you just permanently have this damage bonus. Because your stats are higher, your minion stats are higher too. It's just brilliant. Lastly, for the Golem, it's the Blood Golem with Upgrade 2. Specifically, the Blood Golem ability is kind of this AoE burst, and it kind of slaps everything in a dungeon. So for effective leveling, this is just phenomenal. With Upgrade 2, they get better damage, and also they survive more. And we get a heal too. Next up, we have the Skill Tree, where of course we've got Decompose, and it's upgraded to Initiates. This is what's giving us that 30% movement speed increase for 8 seconds. So you just regularly slap someone with a Decompose, get a speed bonus from it from something else in the passives, as well as this big bonus if it does explode. 3 out of 3 Hue Flesh to spawn corpses, maxing Warrior Mastery of course, 1 point into Grim Harvest to maximize Fueled Death. We get this damage bonus as we're summoning skeletons all the time. Maxing Death's Embrace for close damage and DR, Death's Approach for movement speed. We're maxing out on Decrepify of course, and going into Abhorrent so we get a chance to reduce cooldowns, again so we can slam with our Golem as much as possible, and our ultimate. Because we're using Decrep, of course we're using Amplified Damage, and then maxing out Skeletal Mage Mastery as well. On the next tree you can see how I've gone Corpse Tendrils for the Vulnerable of course. 3 out of 3 Necrotic gives us some Fortify, bit of DR which is nice. 3 out of 3 Reaper's Pursuit's very important. Damaging enemies with darkness skills gives us a 15% increase to movement for 3 seconds. So as you tag enemies with Decompose, you permanently have that. And then occasionally when they explode, you get an even bigger bonus. I'm also picking up 1 level into Gloom, giving us some extra damage and terror for a kind of CC effect. On the final tree, we have 1 point into Army of the Dead, only at Prime. This is the main point of Army of the Dead. We don't care about Supreme because it raises your skeleton warriors and mages, but they're all already alive anyway. So it's a waste of a point. Obviously, we max out Golem Mastery, that's important, Inspiring Leader, and Hellbent Commander. Importantly, this means you need to stand close to your minions to give this damage buff to them, so you try to play at medium to close range to your minions where the fight's happening whenever possible. And then we have Death's Defense, which is honestly overkill at this point. My minions are just not dying, but it is nice to have. You could allocate these 3 points somewhere else if you want. Now, I'd like to credit Vega, who was one of the first to hit level 100 in Season 4 and has consistently been a top Necromancer player, hitting level 100 first burst in multiple seasons. I took a look at his stream and noticed he wasn't running Blight, and so he was running Decompose. Now, as he is speaking Russian, I have no idea why he was doing that, but it was easy to work out. As I've explained, the movement speed boost is so good. If you want to swap to Blight, like I've been saying, for that easy swap, we can come down to something like Death's Defense, which is just not relevant for us, and slap it into Blight and make sure we're picking up Supernatural Blight, so we're getting that massive 20% times increase for us and our minions against those affected by it. We just slap this on the bar instead of Decompose and then rely on that. When we do that, we swap our key passive from Callan's Edict, which is the big attack speed burst benefit that we're running, and put that into Shadow Blight. This is very important because of the main aspect on our weapon, giving us a massive damage and DPS increase. Because that's overkill for our leveling, I'm not doing that unless I'm going for a single target, like killing Duriel or something. Now it's time to talk Paragon, which obviously I'm still working on because I'm level nearly 82 at this point, but I can show you most of what I'm doing and what I'm planning on doing. So here's my starter board, as you can see, coming around to the right and coming and picking up resilience and the extra element res because we do need it. And the first glyph is control. We are constantly stunning, pulling, slowing enemies, so this is a massive 20% times increase for you and your minions. We need the 40 intelligence to get that going, and we can easily get it here on the starter board without even upgrading this to level 15, which is great because we're leveling our glyph still right now. Anyway, that's the first board. We come up to the second, which we have Cult Leader. I want to let you guys know that you actually want this to be the hulking monstrosity board if you only have 2 boards. Once you get to 3 boards, you can move it to here for more efficiency. But yes, my second board, because I've got that, is Cult Leader. Cult Leader is giving us a massive increased damage per 20% attack speed bonus that the minions get, up to a maximum of 100% attack speed. So this is really important. You need a lot of attack speed, but it's not as valuable if you don't reach these breakpoints. It's a bit awkward. So once we hit 20%, awesome, we get a boost. When we hit 40%, we get a nice boost. But when we're at 35%, it doesn't seem to work, which is just weird. It should scale per percent, in my opinion, and maybe we'll change this later. But yeah, because of Cult Leader, attack speed is very valuable. On this board, we of course have Dead Razor. Minions deal damage, and that increases the damage they deal, and also what we do, up to 15% times for 10 seconds. It's also easy to get 40 intelligence on this second board without the level 15 glyph upgrade, so that's again why this is just so good to have here. Next though, we have board number 3, which as I've said is Hulking Monstrosity. We are massively increasing the golem's life and damage here, so this is really important to have. I actually go to this legendary node before I even worry about the glyph. Once I'm ready though, I come down and activate the glyph, where on this board specifically we have Corporeal, and this is important. You will need this at level 15 so that we get the radius increase, so we can get the intelligence to increase this. This increases the golem's damage, its armor, we get movement speed and physical damage for us and the minions, and it also gives a bonus to all magic nodes within range. So extra armor, extra golem damage, that's really nice too. Also, with some spare points, I come down to the bottom here. Frenzy Golem, Golem attack speed, Golem damage. Obviously very important. That's board number 3. On the way up, I do tag Borrowed Strength because why not have some extra damage while the golem's active, but I don't spend many points on that. Coming up to board number 4. Board number 4 is Scent of Death. This is a big damage reduction and very rarely a bit of increased damage. We need this DR as we go into higher content, but it's not valuable or that important when we're leveling, so I go for the glyph first, which is obviously Golem. Massive increase to Golem damage. This is amazing, and so we're going to want as much willpower around this as possible. So I'm going to start boosting this up as soon as possible. But next, I will be coming left and around to my next board, which will be Flesh Eater as a heads up. Flesh Eater gives us a major damage increase for 5 corpses consumed. We're constantly popping those. We can intentionally time this to give this bonus to maximize the burst on a Golem Slam. So that is the next board I will be going to. And in terms of glyph that's going to go there, I'm already working on it. I'm leveling up Gravekeeper, so I can definitely get that active. The more corpses nearby, the more damage I get. We're generating a ton of them, obviously. So this is going to be pretty big. After that, I'm going to flesh things out, go for the rare nodes that I'm missing, make sure my resistances are actually good, and then we might even think about our 5th Paragon board. I will be back to update a true endgame version of this build for pit pushing and so on very soon. Alright, time for the important one. It is our aspects. Starting from the head, we have Occult Dominion. This just gives us more warriors and mages, of course. Absolutely vital. You could actually run this on the boots if you wanted. On the chest, I've just got Hardened Bones. This could be on your legs instead. It doesn't matter. This is just flat DR because we have minions. It's amazing. On our first offensive slot on the gloves, I've got Grasping Veins. This gives us crit strike chance and damage. On the legs, I've got Aphotic. This empowers the warriors to deal shadow damage. This helps stack up the Shadow Blight when you're running that and gives them that stun, which is going to lead into the Paragon glyph control. And it allows the warriors to be a little bit more relevant in terms of helping us get DPS. once I actually start running Shadow Blight consistently because I need higher DPS rather than burst, this is actually a really important aspect. If you wanted to max DPS, I've also got Blood Getters here, which gives your Skeletal Priest an empower to you and therefore your minions as well. It's really good. But instead of that, on the boots I've got Slaughter. This gives me 20% movement speed, but I do lose the bonus for a little bit after I take damage. It allows me to kind of move around quickly as if I'm a rogue or something, and on top of all the other movement increases that we've got, this is pretty incredible. Because I have enough damage, I don't need to get more damage. I want to fly, I want to move through it all as efficiently as fast as possible, so I really like this. But if I wanted to be responsible and go for even more damage, single target or whatever, I'd definitely be running the Skeletal Priest buff on top of everything else. Now for the weapon, it's very important that you run Blighted. When you're running that Shadow Blight key passive, this is up to a 240% times increase for 6 seconds. The Blight passive needs to trigger 10 times. So our Shadow Mages are constantly applying, shadow damage. We can do that through Decompose or Blight. And because of Photic here, our Skeletal Priests are making our Warriors deal shadow damage. So we have loads of ways to regularly be triggering Shadow Blight. This is the biggest damage increase we can get because of that. But again, because I just have so much burst, I'm running Kalen's Edict anyway. The attack speed is just better because we want to maximize Cult Leader. Shadow Blight is undeniably better DPS though, so I will be swapping to that regularly if I'm bossing or, pit pushing and all this. So Blighted is the plan for that. But if you're still swapping your weapon while leveling, this is why it's here. You don't need to worry about it because we're using Kalen's Edict most of the time anyway. For the amulet, it's obviously reanimation. It's the second most important thing. Your minions are alive for 10 seconds to 60% times increased raw DPS. For the rings, we have unyielding. So when I press Army of the Dead, they get a massive increase to the damage. And also they just can't die. Then we had Frenzy Death on the other ring for that attack speed. Very important for Cult Leader. So those are the aspects and why. Let's run down the actual affixes though. Defensively, we're looking for armor, max life, and then I'm slapping intelligence on everything that I can. However, obviously I've got Golem Mastery and Skeletal Mage Mastery wherever I can get it. Your chest, your gloves, your legs. These are very important. Golem Mastery is the most important thing you can get on every slot because it's going to massively increase the damage of your Golem. So that's the top priority. But if you can't get Golem Mastery, Skeletal Mage Mastery is the second best option. So Intelligence, Max Life, Armor. On the offensive slot of the gloves though, attack speed, crit strike chance, more intelligence, very valuable. Defensive slot, we have Intel, Max Life, Armor. Boots, Intel, Max Life, Skeletal Warrior Mastery, which is nice. Or if you're looking for max movement speed like I'm doing, I instead run movement speed and maybe extra movement speed after killing an elite like so. On the weapon, we have intelligence, damage, maximum life. Amulet's a bit awkward right now. I want damage, I want attack speed. Cooldown reduction would be great, but I'm looking for one of the key passives. I've not found it yet, but you can get levels of Hellbent Commander to further increase this buff we give to minions that we're standing near to. So that's actually my top priority here. I'd probably remove the max life in place of Hellbent Commander if I had a perfect amulet. I'm still working on it. For the rings, it's basically more damage. Intelligence, crit strike chance, crit strike damage, and attack speed. Those are the things we're looking for. Then we have to think about Tempered. So on your defensive slot, it's max life and Corpse Tendril or Decrepify increase. You're looking for 2 Corpse Tendril increases and 2 Decrepify increases, ideally. That should be large enough for both to do their thing. Otherwise, it's going to be max life or armor, depending on what you need. I'm overcapped on armor already, so I'm just going for max life on the extra bits. On the offensive slots, you're looking for Golem damage up with Skeletal Mage as a second best option. On your weapon, you can also get Skeletal Priest effect duration up, which is actually quite handy, meaning you don't have to worry about it so often. But obviously, you want Golem damage up on every offensive slot, which means gloves, weapon, and rings, both rings. We'd look for the same on our amulet, but I have bricked this amulet. I've got Skeletal Mages as the second best and Rapid Ossification, which is completely useless. What I was looking for was Golem CDR, which I just couldn't get and I bricked the amulet. However, I did get Ultimate Cooldown Reduction as a secondary option on this ring, and there's the Golem CDR that I was looking for on the other ring. Finally, for gems, as always, it's rubies or health in your armor. There's now the sapphires that provide the vulnerable damage, so you're looking for that in your weapon, and then it's up to you what you put in your jewelry based on what you're lacking. Try to get my resistances to 70% across the board as normal. So this is just what I've done to get as closest to that as I can get right now. So how do you actually play this effectively? Well, it's very easy and you probably won't need to even worry about this stuff, but basically you want to pop the Army of the Dead for a massive damage buff and then slam with the Golem on cooldown during that buff as many times as possible. Around that, you keep everything decrepified for the damage buff of that, and your Minion Priest buff active always for the damage and attack speed provided. Then we Tendril Pull always for the stun, which leads into control, as well as say the Grasping Veins aspect, which gives us the crit strike chance and damage. So the idea is that you have your Priest buff, the Decrep debuff, Tendril Pull buffs, and your army active, all so that you can use your Golem Slam ability as many times as possible. Nothing can survive pretty much one of these right now, but long term, that's going to be the best way that we use all of this in combination. Even better, you'd have your 10 ticks of Shadow Blight for that damage buff, and your Corpse Eater 5 corpses consumed for that damage buff all at once for, you know, the billions of damage clips we saw in the PTR. But there you have it. In conclusion, this build is busted. This is just the fastest moving Necromancer I've ever played, while also being comically strong as a build. With the simple swaps to make when you're either speed leveling in dungeons for burst, or planning to go more DPS wise for a single target, there's no downside, you can easily swap. So overall, I strongly recommend this setup for while you're still blasting to 100, and probably still making these kind of swaps while you're ironing out the build in true endgame. Nothing's going to be that challenging even in lower pits and farming bosses, so it should be completely fine. I hope this guide has given you what you were looking for, but until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.